welcome Martin Jönsson, CEO of Alzecure, Johan Sandin, CSO of Alzecure, Charlotte Stjerngren, partner at Cord Communications, and Fredrik Thor, Redeye's equity analyst.
Thank you, John. And welcome, as John said. Martin, can you maybe just start in 30 seconds or so to describe what type of company Alzecure is?
Absolutely. So Alzecure is a Swedish biotech focusing on Alzheimer's disease, cognition and pain. And our aim is to develop our products up to early clinical phase and then to out-license them.
Good and short answer.
Absolutely.
And you target these, you're in neurology. It's a tricky field if we look at success rates. And you have more of a platform approach, but you target, as you said, pain and Alzheimer's. What do you think about risk in that respect? How do you mitigate risk? For example, having several candidates, several indications. Yeah, how do you mitigate risk in a tricky field?
Yeah. What we do is we have several different candidates, so we have follow-up candidates. And then I would say as well that in certain areas where we are in Alzheimer's, that is a more risky business. If you go into the pain area, it's less risky. And some of our assets is actually, how should I say, are molecules where you have similar molecules, which also are less risky. But of course, we're working very close to key opinion leaders, scientists, and making sure we are good on track on the latest science and everything.
So talking about risk,
yes,
you're developing on the amyloid beta hypothesis. And I'm wondering what differs you from others. Can you explain for someone like me who doesn't, why is it Alzecure and not someone else? We've tried this amyloid beta hypothesis very many times.
Exactly. Reasons it has failed is that previously when studies were done, patients were included which actually did not have Alzheimer's. With the improved diagnostic, we are much better at finding the right patients. That's why the field is progressing. Our concept when it comes to Alzstatin, which is one of our products, is very different from the antibodies. We focus on the building block for the toxic amyloid to see to it that we minimize that so you don't build up the toxic plaques. So in that way we are different, and we are also working with the preventive treatment to see to it that you don't develop the disease. The antibodies, you treat patients who already have developed the disease and their brains are really damaged, and we don't want the patient to come there.
So what type of competition do you have in preventing Alzheimer's then? Who else is in that field?
There is a couple of companies. Roche has a similar project which they have been running, but it doesn't seem like it's moving forward. You also have vaccines, but otherwise this approach is different. I would say we are rather unique when it comes to that. We are developing small molecules and an oral therapeutic which can potentially be more cost effective.
It sounds fantastic, but from a stock market perspective it also sounds like it's going to take a very long time because you have to follow these patients, I guess, for a long time to see that it really prevents. Talking about, I mean, this is a long time in the future for you doing phase 3 trials and so forth, but still it's going to be longer term to follow them?
It will surely take time, but what's good here is that Alzstatin is like you think of the statins, where you focus on decreasing the building blocks which is running up to the disease. So therefore we think that we can utilize the data from the antibodies, and this is also something that the FDA and EMA has said. So if we have the right biomarkers and we are impacting the right things, we can potentially get an approval already on the biomarkers data.
Yeah, and just to build on that also, I think that's related to FDA's guidelines that came out, I think it was in the spring of 2018, that actually have taken in all of the new science showing that the disease starts way before symptom onset. So actually allowing for preventive therapies and going on surrogate biomarkers. Obviously that's what Aduhelm has got, for example. So I mean, I think the whole field is moving towards earlier kind of targeting with different therapies to prevent disease onset. So.
And you mentioned Aduhelm, and it was a bit controversial, the conditional approval, but also sales have not been very successful so far. But it also, Alzheimer's got a lot of attention from regulators and from experts in the fields and so on. And just in your perspective, what was kind of the net effect of everything that happened last year with Aduhelm? Was it good or bad for the field and in extension Alzecure?
In one way, I mean, certainly it's shown that there is a regulatory path forward. So I think that's a very positive thing. And it's also increased attention and interest in the Alzheimer area, and that we've seen from large pharma companies. I think with that specific product, obviously it had problems already from the start with kind of semi-good package, I would say, with one study showing no effect and one study showing some effect. And obviously, I think the ones that are coming along now in the market, they have a much stronger package, so they have a much better chance of actually showing effects, I would say.
Yeah. And my next question, you mentioned you have both a symptomatic treatment and a preventive treatment, and why is there a need for a symptomatic treatment if you can prevent it, so to say? Why do you have both?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I mean,
but not a tricky question.
Not a tricky one. It's actually, if you look at how a disease modifier actually works, it modifies the progression rate, so it changes the slope of the disease progression, if you will. But you will only notice the difference in functional parameters after 1.5 to 2 years. So that's where you measure it. A symptomatic will have an acute effect, a very rapid onset of effect on functional parameters such as cognition. So for the affected individual and for the relatives, this is a much more apparent change and actually a highly relevant effect. So I would say with disease modifying coming to the market, there's an even increased need for symptomatics, because what we'll see is probably a combination therapy in these patients.
Perhaps it's also that risk management from your side.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm thinking you have 6 candidates in development, 3 platforms. Can you strategically do all that in a small company?
Yes, we can. First of all, this is about the risk mitigation. So what we are working, since our different projects are in different phases, some of the early projects aren't very expensive to drive, and then as you develop further and further into development, then it becomes more expensive. So we think it fits very well. And then certain projects that we see that there is a larger interest for, those we drive more intensely.
I was thinking about your candidate within chronic pain, ACD440, and it was actually an in-license project, so it was not developed fully from Alzecure. What was the strategic reasoning behind this? And you also made some changes to the formulation and to the administration. What was the reasoning behind that, and what did you see that perhaps no one else did?
Well, I think, I mean, if you look at the target mechanism, this is a mechanism that's well validated. It's actually the discovery of the receptor received the Nobel Prize last year. And I think the mechanism has been tried out to some extent, but as an oral formulation. And we saw clearly that there was a very strong case for making a topical formulation, because what you see in these patients with peripheral neuropathic pain is an upregulation of the target protein in the skin. So actually having a topical formulation, increasing the exposure at the target site, but avoiding systemic activation of the receptors, I think is a given. So this is something we developed and obviously run the phase 1b trial last year, which had some really nice efficacy data that we're now building on to start the phase 2 trial. So
good. And Yeah, my next question was about, as you mentioned, especially Alzecure is a few years behind from, for example, Aduhelm, but also, it could also be an advantage given that we don't fully know how to diagnose patients early and so on. In the upcoming years, before Alzecure can be commercialized, what do you hope to see in the field? What kind of advancements are needed for you and for other companies to successfully change the treatment paradigm?
I think when it comes to the developments, we've already seen major developments in the biomarker diagnostics area, the blood-based biomarkers, as we've seen, for example, which certainly helps a lot when it comes to screening patients for clinical trials inclusions. And we've seen that they can also predict patients that are going to go into symptomatic stages of the disease with several years in advance. So I think the whole biomarker diagnostics area is an exploding area that is certainly working in our favor. And I think also with the whole regulatory path, as we've shown, Aduhelm is one of the first, and now there are coming more. And I think that will also help with kind of preparing for the regulatory path forward. So I think there are multiple advantages.
And one of those who are coming this autumn is BioArctic's phase 3.
Yes.
How dependent are you on that?
I mean, if BioArctic gets approved, which we really, really hope, I mean, we think it will help us very, very much because it shows that if you are attacking amyloid fragments, this is a good treatment way. So that will also then validate Alzecure. But we will also see, I think, that these companies who are marketing these drugs need more treatments, like, for instance, New Restore. So we already now see that the big companies who have similar drugs like Biogen and Eisai with lecanemab, they are interested in broadening their Alzheimer portfolio. So this will help us.
And if they fail, you're going to put Alzecure down?
No way.
No, so I think there's clearly, I mean, we see if BioArctic's antibody would go through, obviously that shows that, it's showing the path forward within the amyloid field. But we are working with a different type of mechanism, that's clear. We are also working with small molecules which can pass the blood-brain barrier much more, much better. So obviously, I think there are clear differences in the different mechanism of action here, and obviously all molecules stand on their own legs in that perspective.
And I also think we will see that there are different patients, some that can be treated with antibodies in a good way, and then I think we will see certain patients who can't, and this will also generate a big need, or you see the need for additional drugs, just like Alzecure.
Maybe a very short answer, but you always remind me of TrkA-NAM, your preclinical candidate.
Exactly.
Can you maybe just very shortly describe why it's still interesting for investors, even though it's very early stage?
Because there has been TrkA-NAM molecules are in phase 2 in pain indications, and have shown with regard to that it's a good concept. And there has been deals done very early, already before you have clinical data, only for regional deals up to 16.5 million US dollars, total deal value of 350. And here we are coming with a molecule that we showed new data on yesterday, that we not only have an analgesic effect but also inflammatory effect. So this is really exciting, and we already now see from big pharma that TrkA-NAM is attractive.
Perfect. That's all the time we had. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you all for an interesting conversation.